Hello and welcome to another edition of Storyophonic, a regular conversation series with tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. Please take a moment and rate us or give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow us at storyophonic.com as well as on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now let's meet the host of Storyophonic, Dan Campbell.
She's an American girl, a California girl, a teenage dream, she's wide awake, and she most certainly can roar. I'm referring to artist, songwriter, and producer Bonnie McKee. She might be best known to listeners from her multiple award-winning collaborations with Katy Perry, as a solo recording artist, or as a recent guest vocalist with dance provocateurs Kygo and Armin van Buuren.
I am really grateful that I've had so many hardships because I think it helps me to, be a human, have a human experience. And when everything's all hunky-dory, you may not have as much to write about. I'm glad to have those references, but also I don't have to live in turmoil and chaos because I had enough years of that to draw from. I remember what that feels like. I don't need to stay in my dark place. And I feel like a lot of artists feel like they need to create chaos or they need to stay in that place, but you don't. Being happy is a full-time job, and I'm doing my best here,
If you've listened to the radio over the past decade, you've heard her songs for Britney Spears, Kelly Clarkson, Adam Lambert, Kesha, and Cher. And now we meet her in studio as we welcome the luminous, lustrous, glamorous, and fabulous Bonnie McKee. Bonnie, so great to have you.
Thanks.
I still remember the first time I interviewed you. It was the first time I'd ever done an interview where a bikini was involved.
Yeah.
And I should clarify, you were in the bikini.
Yes, I was. Yeah. We were in Hawaii.
We were in Hawaii in the Kauai Music Festival. For our friends at BMI introduced me to you, and we had a good conversation. And I've seen you many times since socially, but it's great to get to reunite with you in this day and age. You're always doing a lot, and it's so interesting. So I'd like to kind of start in the present and talk about some of the things that you're involved in right now. We know you as an artist. We know you as a producer, vocal producer specifically too, and also of course as this mega songwriter with an incredible catalog of hits. Some fun things recently. Dumb Blonde with Avril Lavigne.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I have met and worked with Avril many times over the years, kind of sporadically, and we always just got along, and she sort of called me out of the blue and asked me to come in and work on it, and it's always exciting to work with an icon like that, and you don't even realize how iconic she is until she opens her mouth in the studio and starts to sing, and you're just like, oh my God, you're so familiar with it, and I went on a trip down memory lane and was watching all of her old videos and realized, I know every word to every song. And I'm a fan of Avril, but it's not like I was listening to it every single day. It's just I'm just a passive listener, and I still knew every single word to all the songs. And I was like, God, she is really just such an American icon. Well, she's Canadian, I guess, but she came in with a great idea. She had the concept for Dumb Blonde and came in all fired up and ready to go. And I was like, well, this is going to be easy. And we just kind of threw it together. So
sure. And lyrically, it's don't underestimate me.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's something that I think a theme in a lot of my songs is kind of the underdog story. And she came in after having gotten in a fight with her boyfriend or something that day, and he had called her a dumb blonde in the fight. And so she came in and was like, I've got an idea. I ain't no dumb blonde. And she just had it ready to go. And I was like, okay, yeah, I've been there. And I've definitely had people treat me that way throughout my career. So it's definitely something I related to and I knew a lot about. So I was excited to kind of tell that story for her.
It's interesting when artists come up at a young age, and I know obviously you were signed a very young part of your life as well. When a lot of people around you seem to have a lot of ideas for what you need to be doing or what you should be doing, and obviously the resistance to that or the breakthrough from that kind of thinking is something that really seems to power a lot of artists now.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah.
a lot of opinions out there in this world,
Yeah, and a lot of kind of uneducated opinions as well. It's incredible to me how many A&R people and managers and people behind the scenes that are supposed to be the machine that runs everything really have no taste and really just run off of fear. Where it's like, well, everybody, there's no science to A&R.
Right.
And so everyone is constantly on the verge of losing their jobs. So no one wants to take any risks because if they take a risk and it flops, then they lose their job. So that's why, you end up with a really saturated market of everything sounding the same because everyone's like, well, that worked. So let's just do something that sounds like that,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting with your vocal chops, how well your voice works in dance music, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Some of the new things that are kind of happening in your world is you guesting on and on spots with Armin van Buuren very famously.
Yeah.
And I think I listened to like 10 remixes of that today,
Yeah.
so it's like really, really on my mind. And the song is "Lonely for You," which I think came out on Valentine's Day of all things.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you hook up with Armin van Buuren?
Actually, my friend Eden, who's a very talented songwriter and artist herself, brought me into the session, and we wrote a couple songs that day. And he just ended up wanting to keep my vocal on it, and I was really honored. He's a legend in the EDM world, and that was fun. And I was on tour with Kygo last year, featured on a Kygo song as well. It's such a niche thing to be like the featured singer on EDM stuff. You know what I mean? It's a different world and a different audience as well. So it's interesting playing those shows. I don't know. It's just very different from like a pop crowd.
Kygo plays huge shows, right?
Yeah, we played O2 Arena in London at 18,000 people, and it was arenas every night. So, and I got to tour the world with him basically. So it was really fun.
Yeah, so how much of did you have to do, like the whole set or parts of the set?
I did 2 songs every night. In Kygo's set, he brings a lot of guest performers, and so it's a really interesting show. There's 5 or 6 live performers, and they sing the whole song, and it's very pop-minded. So Kygo leans a little more pop, and then Armin is a little more in the trance world, so it's a lot more like remixy stuff, and more like proper rave culture.
Yeah.
And then Kygo, because he's done the Selena Gomez stuff and Miguel and everything, it's a little more pop leaning.
Yeah. What are the qualities of your voice that allow it to cut through a mix like that?
I don't know. I have a big range, and I love to write things that are just at the very top where everything's impossible to sing live. But it keeps it exciting. So I don't know. I think that, and I also have a really pop voice. So even when I try to not have a pop voice, I just do. That's just who I am. That's just how I sound. So I think that really complements a lot of the kind of bassier sort of EDM stuff. So.
Good. I like it. You said that you and Eden wrote a couple of songs in a day. Do you write that?
We did 2 days.
2 days.
And we did a song a day.
Wow.
And then I actually also co-wrote the Kygo song with her. So we have like a good track record with the EDM stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting, the function of the song within the overall process of what EDM is, but it's still very melodic, and those songs are very melodic.
Yes, and that I think that is why I end up on these kind of tracks, is because in modern pop music right this second, melody is not really a thing. It's all very kind of monotone. There's a lot of urban rap stuff, and like the big soaring melodies are kind of not happening on the radio right now. But in EDM, that's kind of key. That's like the cherry on top. So it's easy. It's just like in my wheelhouse to write a hook for something like that.
Yeah. What are your tools when you write? Do you write? Are you on an instrument, or is your voice the instrument?
Usually when I'm writing with a producer like that, they will have a track that's done. And if not, then I'll start on piano, and we'll get some chords together and then build from there. And I write with pen and paper. Mm-hmm. A lot of people write on their phone or on laptops, but I don't know. I can't. There's just something about the connection between my brain and my hand and the sky that's how it works for me, is that I always have to write it down, then look at it.
Wow, the writing to track thing is so interesting, because I know that's obviously the way that a lot of writers work now, is top liners, and the top liners being the melody and the lyrics, It just seems like an interesting. Can you take us inside that process a little?
Yeah, I started out as a singer-songwriter, sitting at the piano, starting everything from scratch and doing everything myself. And so, there's a few different sort of learning curves there where at first I had to learn how to write songs with other people. Just that idea was, you have to swallow your pride and get ready to have somebody tell you your idea isn't great and what about this instead? And that's like a whole kind of mind fuck to wrap your head around. Yeah. And then getting used to writing to a track that already exists. So you're writing inside of a beautiful little box. And because a lot of times they'll send you tracks and like the producer won't even be there. So it's like you can rearrange things, you can chop and cut and paste and whatever, but you can't take any of the elements out or anything. So it's a different skill set. It's like a puzzle. It's like a word puzzle that you're trying to fit onto this track. And it's a very different process, So it took me a long time to kind of work that out. And then I don't know, I've really done it every which way. I just actually did a K-pop session a couple days ago, and it was so completely different. It's just a completely different format where it was like the more melodies, the better, which is like the polar opposite of what I came up learning, which is I came up under Max Martin, and it's all about symmetry. It's all about repetition and familiarity. And this is like, oh, no, it's like very short attention spans with these kinds of fans. So just like the more interesting, the more melody, the more like every little bit changes every couple bars. And I was like, this is so much information. This is just so counterintuitive, but it was fun because it was just like, just like any little weird, earworm that comes to my mind. I can just throw in everything in the kitchen sink, And also we filling in the blanks for the lyrics, because most of it will be changed to Korean, it just has to rhyme and be phonetically sound. And so it was kind of a fun process to just like fill in the blanks and be like, and just write stupid, silly stuff that just sounds cool, but like doesn't make any sense, So it was a sort of a fun departure from the Swedish box that I've been living in for so long.
I love the points of reference, though, the geographic points of reference you just put out there. And K-pop has become, such a phenomenon within our world, with the success of bands like BTS or Blackpink. Or it's just so interesting to see that whole global approach to pop music.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally, completely different. And it's exciting. I like that there's a lot of theatrics in that. And it's just unabashed pop. There's no like anybody trying to be too cool for school. I mean, it's always cool and they like reference other cool stuff, but melody isn't like a dirty word like it kind of is right now in modern American pop music.
Yeah. I like the Swedish box that you referred to, and Max Martin's influence on modern pop music can't be overstated. I mean, plus for a producer with he has such an impact over such a long period of time, because production, as you know, tends to be fairly a finite kind of a moment. He's always extended that.
Yeah, Max is a genius in that he knows when to call for backup. Like he's always signing new young producers that know what's next. And that's how he stays relevant. And then he is the mastermind that understands the math behind pop music. And he is a melodic genius. I really feel like he's like the Beethoven of our time. Like there's no one else alive that can do what he does. And I'm really blessed and grateful to have studied with him, essentially.
Writers that have told me that have worked with him say he's always very interested in other people's ideas,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, he's definitely, there's not a lot of ego going on, like he will tell you if he thinks you're wrong, and he'll tell you if he doesn't like your idea. But if you have an idea that he thinks is better than his, he'll take it. He does what's best for the song. And I think that's really what it takes to write a hit,
That's cool. I interviewed him very briefly because he doesn't really do interviews.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to interview him for the ASCAP Pop Awards, one of the gazillion years that he won Writer of the Year. And I had the right amount of chutzpah to kind of like call out to him, and he was lovely, but you could tell it. But it's not because of any kind of an ego thing. It's because he just he's Swedish, and that's just not what he does.
Yeah, he's just very reserved.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Benny Blanco is a part of that. Has been a part of that community, and I know you've worked with Benny as well.
Yes.
I got to interview him very early on in his career, and I found him fascinating. And again, somebody who really pushes it in the pop music world.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I love Benny, and he started out super young. He's another like genius person, and he also is such a tastemaker. He always has been. He's always known what's next, And I'm really happy to see him doing his solo project now. I'm really excited to hear that. So I've always been a fan of his, and he keeps it cool. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times he's just like, that sucks because it's too cheesy or it's whatever. And I was just like, okay, thank you for your honesty. I'm gonna go get cool now. Thank you. So he's a great collaborator because he knows how to be brutally honest and still kind, where nobody gets offended. You know what I mean?
I like the cool reference because when you see him out socially, sometimes it's sort of unusual. He used to wear like a lot of vintage stuff.
Yeah, he's very eccentric. Yeah. He's a true artist.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. As are you.
Oh,
as are you, a true artist, you know, and we love all of your solo work. And
thank you.
I heard through the grapevine, possibly we got some new things coming up pretty soon too.
Yeah, I'm actually working on an album right now. Yeah, and I haven't put out a full-length album since I was a teenager. I put out an EP a few years ago, and I've done singles and things, but I just think it's time, you know, and I don't know, people say nobody listens to full albums anymore. I don't care. It's really just more for me. I want to put out a body of work. And I want to stop being so precious. I really feel like I'm such a perfectionist, and so I really have not put out that much music, even though I'm sitting on 200 songs. You know, it's like I just, you know, every song can't be your Thriller. You know, you just have to be like, this is who I am, this is what I finished, and give it to the world, and not overthink it. But it's hard to do. Although these days it's easier because people put out a song every week. You know, it's like. It's refreshing. So I'm trying to like kind of get more into that mode and get out of the sort of old school idea of like record cycles. That just doesn't exist anymore.
True. It's almost like a constant cycle, or for certain artists, it's a constant cycle.
Yeah, which is kind of exhausting because it's nice to think like, oh, you put out an album and then you can just go tour and just chill for a minute, and that'll take you for like 2 years or whatever it is. And now it's like, no, like Ariana Grande put out an album, and then 6 months later she put out another full-length album. Like, that's a lot of work. Making an album is a lot of work. So kudos to her. But also I'm just like, yeah, well, I'm making that much music. I am putting out that much work. So I might as well share it with the world and not just have it die on a hard drive, you know?
Yeah. Can you tell us about how you're recording the album or the process of it, or how are you going to know when it's done?
Well, I think it was David Bowie that said, music is never done, it's abandoned.
Yes.
And I really believe that. So I guess when I get to a point of just like losing my shit and feeling like I can't listen to it anymore, then I know it's done. Once I start to hate it, then I know it's done.
We've been real happy to see kind of the sea change with more women becoming involved as composers, as producers, as recording engineers. We've been really happy to see that. But, you know, what kind of challenges do we have to encounter as creative women? I mean, women producers, we don't have that many.
Yeah. I think that it's been a culture of telling girls that, you know, that's just not what girls do. Or like, you don't push the buttons. Like, it's always like, oh, I need to get a dude in here to do this or that. And I mean, I've been backseat producing from day one, from the first demo I ever recorded when I was 14 years old. I want to hear this kind of sound. I want my vocal to sound like this. I want to hear this kind of drum beat. That's production, you know? It is. And, you know, a lot of the great classic producers never played an instrument. They just told everybody else what to do. And so if that counts as production, then I'm absolutely a producer. But I also am, you know, operating a MIDI controller is not a difficult thing to do. Yeah. I record all of my own vocals and edit all my own vocals and tune all my own vocals and all that. So I know how to vocal produce. I know my way around Pro Tools. And, you know, plugging in a MIDI controller is not rocket science, you know. So, even I have had this hang up of like, oh, I'm not a producer because I don't like program the drums. But that's just not the case. And so just in the past couple of years, I've been like, you know what, I'm going to be the guy that pushes the buttons, you know, like I already am. I just, I think it's also like me, just in my case, being lazy a little bit, where I'm just like, I know that this is a whole new skill that I have to learn. And like learning how to program drums and all that kind of stuff is like, I know someone else can probably do it better than I can, but I need to get in my 10,000 hours before I can really be like, okay, I'm an expert at this. I'm like, you know, I would feel comfortable being like, I produce this 100%, you know. I also like to collaborate, you know, and I think it's important to know your strengths. And, you know, if drums aren't my strength, then I want to bring in somebody that's great at that, you know. and there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a producer, you know? So it's been like really empowering the past couple of years, especially there's been a lot going on in this town talking about empowering women in more behind the scenes kind of roles in executive positions. And that has been really inspiring to me to be like, well, yeah, like I'm an expert at what I do. So like, why would I not take that credit? Why should I not get a point on this record? You know? And like, also as a songwriter, male or female, I think we really get fucked a lot of times because the producers are getting, first of all, producers these days are getting half the publishing for the song, and they're getting a production fee, and they're getting points. And then we just go in and write the song. And oftentimes, I mean, I know I don't just go in for a day and be like, song's done. Like I'm there, I'm vocal producing, I'm, you know, rewriting, I'm editing, I'm massaging, you know, and I don't get paid for my time. I don't get paid unless the song's a hit, you know? And the odds of that, even when you're a successful songwriter, are slim, you know? So I don't know. I would like to see more songwriters either getting day rates or getting points, you know? Because there's 100 points. And like, so, you know, the label's getting the bulk of that. The artist will get some, and then the producers get a piece. And we're just, I mean, the song doesn't exist without us.
Sure.
So I think it's time for songwriters to, you know, do something about that. Unfortunately, there is some kind of loophole in the law from like the 1800s or something crazy about how we can't unionize.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it's complicated. But I think that if we all just kind of banded together and we're like, no, we want points on what we do, that would be fair, you know.
Well, songwriters seem a lot more empowered and banded together. We've had a lot of representatives from SONA, Songwriters in North America here, talking specifically about you know, legislation which affects songwriters. So I think if that philosophy continues to go, it's going to be better for all of us.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Especially those of us who love songwriters. Our listeners are going to be familiar with you for many different reasons, and a lot of them probably would have been first introduced to you with Katy Perry, and a body of work that you created with Miss Perry that just was resonated throughout the world, and thank God for all those songs. You know?
Yes, I'm very blessed. I'm really lucky and grateful.
Roar. It's got some kind of special like platinum award or diamond award. It's got
I think it was certified diamond.
Diamond, right. And there's a reference point to that through that song back to I Am Woman.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, that was where that came from. Yeah. When Katie and I were sitting talking about what we wanted it to be about, we knew we wanted it to be empowering, and we were just going through like, okay, what are some of the like you can do it songs of the ages, you know? And I was like, what about, you know, like Eye of the Tiger? And she was like, yeah, let's say that. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, why not? It's been 40 years or something since that song came out, so okay. And same with I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, you know, and those are, I'm all about like pulling references from past decades because you know, it's great if you can come up with something that's never been said before, but it's also like, it's 2019. Everything's been said. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with borrowing from the greats.
Yeah, especially I Am Woman. I just thought that was just so interesting. It made me go back and listen to the song again. I hadn't thought about it in a while.
Yeah.
But that came out in the early 70s when the woman thing was just very strong in that point. So very cool. Yeah,
my mom raised me to be a good little feminist, and so she was always telling me about how she burned her bras in the 60s and, you know, all that. So, yeah, she grew up teaching me all about that stuff, so that's what I knew about it.
You grew up near Seattle, is that correct?
I grew up in a suburb of Seattle. Called Bellevue, which is now a huge city in its own right, but yeah.
Yeah, Seattle's changed a great deal, I understand.
Yes, it's very different. It's very different. Yeah. It's funny, like the older generations are a lot cooler than the newer ones, because it was like such a hippie town, like kind of a bunch of rich hippies, really. And now it's like such a techie town that it's like gotten a little bit bro-y, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it's lost some of the charm, I think. It's just very corporate feeling. But it's such a beautiful city and multicultural, and food's great and architecture's great. It's a really wonderful city to grow up in too, for all those reasons. But I just love LA. I really am truly a California girl.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. California Girl. There's a song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know you've talked about that a lot, and that was written to track. Is that correct? Did you and Miss Perry write to track?
Yeah. Most of the stuff that I did with Katy, we wrote to Max Martin melodies and tracks that Luke and Max and either Circuit or Benny or Billboard or whoever it was put together. And Katy and I Katy co-wrote a lot of the melodies, I think. And then they brought me in primarily for lyrical stuff. And sometimes we would get away with changing some melodies if Max would allow us to. And we'd like go in and like have a whole approach of how we were going to talk him into it and, all of our arguing points and be like, okay, here's what we're going to say. So California Girls was Katy's idea, Katy's brilliant idea. And once again, borrowing from the past. Yeah. And it was a brilliant idea. And she herself is also such a California girl, and that's something that we had in common. So that was an easy one to write.
Yeah. We interviewed Greg Wells, who's worked with Katy a lot, and he said her sense of humor is just off the books.
Yeah, she's a character for sure. Yeah, she's a lot of fun.
That's very cool. Yeah, Teenage Dream, another song from that period of time, or another song identified with Katy Perry. Amazing song, amazing in its simplicity, I think.
Thank you.
Just a line which is almost so self-evident that I think most people would overlook it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's funny. I don't know. We wrote the song 5 times all the way through, front to back, with different lyrics, and then we were just pulling our hair out, and just everybody hated each other, and then I had an intervention, a divine intervention, and the title Teenage Dream came to me, and then I took it to Katy and we built it out together. And I really thought that I invented it. I was like, I'm such a genius, Teenage Dream. And then I never thought to search it. And then I only recently was searching, and I was like, oh shit, T-Rex had a song called Teenage Dream. And I'm a T-Rex fan, so I was like,
sure.
There's a good chance that I heard that. And I didn't even know it, but I thought that it came out of my brain, so whatever.
That's interesting. There's this subconscious songwriting thing. I read recently an article, I think it was in Billboard, about how that can be a dangerous thing when you write something and if you listen to so much music.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I try to not listen too much. I mean, I'll listen once through to whatever recently comes out just to assess what's going on and whatever, stay relevant. But I try not to over listen to modern music because it does get in your brain and it changes the way that I write. So I like to sort of use older references, and then I'm not in as much trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. You've worked with Adam Lambert, who I think is just such an astonishing vocalist.
Oh, the best I've ever worked with. The best vocals I've ever.
That's an incredible
had
facility.
the pleasure of working with. Yeah, because he has such an incredible range and power, but he also is very emotive, and he's also just a lovely person and so much fun to work with and so hilarious. I just adore him.
Yeah, I mean that the range, it's so interesting. I know he does the tours with Queen now, which Freddie Mercury was, of course, a god. But I mean, if anybody can, imprint on that.
I've seen him play with Queen a couple times now, and you would think that the fans would revolt, no one can ever replace Freddie, but everyone's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, we're into it. Yeah. If anybody's going to do it, I feel like he's the only person in the world that could do it.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody else doing that particular that particular thing. And again, that Queen, that's another example of something from the past which has become relevant again. Yeah. And now the success of that film has inspired more rock movies, which I think is great. Anything that leads people to music has got to be great.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's really cool. Your career as an artist, as you indicated, you were signed at a very young age. I remember the story of that, and that it was a little difficult. It was a weird time historically for the record business. But you are an artist. I mean, everything you do is about being an artist. I mean, I just think that's who you are.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Yeah. I wish often that I just wanted to be a songwriter. Yeah. Or that I just wanted to, have a day job and then sing karaoke on the weekends or something. It's it keeps me up at night. It drives me. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And but it's volatile, you know. And I really am like the definition of a tortured artist. Like it really eats away at me, you know. And I wish that I didn't have that kind of, I don't know, desire to reach the whole world.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why it's interesting to see with the dance thing where suddenly there's a built-in kind of an audience for what you do.
Yeah.
And I noted that you did a bunch of shows, a number of shows last summer, play some Pride festivals around the country. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that a fun audience for you?
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. I love the Pride audiences, and especially going to like Middle America. I feel like they appreciate it so much. And, you know, because there's still plenty of places in America where it's just like still a thing to be gay, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's nice to get up on that stage and celebrate people. And I love the meet and greets. I love meeting the fans and taking pictures and hugging everybody and signing things. And that's really like the reason that I got into being a singer and making pop music is because I want to help people. I want to brighten their day and say what they can't say. So meeting the fans face to face is really my favorite part.
You played big ones too. Was it St. Louis or Chicago? Was it Chicago? Yeah. Really, that's got to be huge.
Yeah, they're pretty big, and it's fun. It's just fun, you know. And all the drag race girls come out, and you know, it's just a really lively crowd.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I've been to Pride festivals here in LA. I've seen like Cyndi Lauper perform, or you know, they really, and Joss Stone. I mean, artists that really kind of embrace that whole thing. And you're one of those artists, as Katy Perry is too. I mean, she different people are like, oh, that's a great audience.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Yeah,
You know, so.
Yeah, Katy's an icon in that world.
Yes, yes. Have drag queens done you?
Oh, yeah. And that's when I knew that I made it. That's when I knew that I had done something right, was when I saw a drag queen in Bonnie McKee in a red wig and booty shorts and heels singing American Girl. I was just like, hallelujah, I've made it in this world.
I love it. I love it. American Girl is a great song.
Thank
and
you.
I've listened, you know, in preparation for this, I've been through your whole catalog and the line raised on television, you know, I think we can relate to that.
Yeah, I really do feel like I was raised by a television. Like when I think back to my childhood, I mean, you know, I played outside and whatever, but for the most part, like I feel like I learned so many life lessons watching sitcoms, and you know, I learned all about the birds and the bees from watching MTV, you know, and it really molded who I am. Like pop culture is just coursing through my veins, and so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Did you see music acts on television as well? Or that?
Yeah, I remember I saw an HBO special, a Tina Turner special, and I was like, it was so weird. Like she did Proud Mary, and I was so excited that I cried. I remember like jumping off the couch and like just being like a little puppy, just like jumping up and down and crying, being so excited by it and being like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And of course, MTV, watching music videos, you know, and also the other reason why I feel like I gravitate so much more towards being an artist and not just a songwriter is because I'm a visual artist as well. And really, when I think about those early days of watching MTV and seeing Madonna and Prince and everybody, I remember watching the videos and being like, I want to do that. But by that, I meant make music videos. I want to tell a story visually and sing it. And, you know, it's like the whole package. My favorite part about this whole thing is making music videos. And so when I'm just behind the scenes and I'm just a songwriter, I don't get any say in what that video is going to look like, or, you know, and so that's the most fun part for me.
Oh, interesting. So do songs, do they inspire that in you in an instant sense?
Yes, always. Every song I write, I'm seeing the music video in my head as I go. And it's so, and I also just love the challenge of like a production of like writing a treatment and getting all the details together and costuming and lighting. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's a more hands-on experience. And also you get to do something other than sit in a studio for 18 hours a day, you know? So it's nice. I don't know. And each one is different, you know?
Yeah. That's very interesting. The visual, you know, the pop culture thing that you reference, you know, I've had songwriters or artists and producers say to me that some kind of that determines the pop thing is like whatever piece of the popular culture you can influence in any given time, you know. speaking of television, you have some acting background as well.
Yeah, yes, I've done a little bit of acting. I was in August Rush.
Yes.
Playing the best friend of Carrie Russell, so that was cool. And I think I mostly got the job because I played classical piano, and so I could read music, and that like kind of was the nail in the coffin and got me the part. And then I everything that I've done was music related. So I played Janis Joplin on a show called American Dreams, and then I got killed off on CSI New York. So that was cool, and I was like a subway musician. Although they hired me, they were like, "You can play guitar, right?" And I was like, "Yes, I can't at all." And so I had like 2 weeks to learn how to play guitar, and I did it. I learned those songs that I needed to learn, and my fingers were bleeding, but I did it. So yeah, and I've been dabbling in that again recently. So yeah, I just love movie magic. You know, that's a big part of what inspires me. So I'm excited to get back into that again.
The Janis Joplin thing is a funny point of reference.
Yeah.
You don't look like Janis Joplin.
No, I don't. And they really uglied me up for that. They really like purposely gave me like splotchy skin and like bushy eyebrows and like a horrible wig and the whole thing. And also I don't sound anything like her. So that was like a real challenge because I have a very clean as a whistle pop voice and she's known for the grit. And so I taught myself to split tones. That was another thing that she did.
Yes.
And so I smoked a lot of cigarettes and I like ate bananas and like did everything I could to get like as much weird stuff happening in my voice as I could. And I managed it. I mean, is it the best Janis you ever heard? No, but considering what I normally sound like, I was like, okay, I did the damn thing.
I love that you referenced the split tones because that's something that she was able to hit more than one note at a time, and that's just like a very rare thing.
Yeah, and you know, I grew up in classical choir, and so we did learn about splitting tones like that. But it's different splitting tones because you can have overtones and undertones when you have a really clear sound like tone like that. But to also have a grit is a whole other thing. So there was like really 3 different aspects happening. Yeah, I managed to do it, but it was not easy.
Well, the classical background is very interesting. You went from a kind of a classical background. Did you have a bad girl part of your upbringing?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I was an absolute teenage nightmare. Yeah, not a teenage dream, but a teenage nightmare. Yes, I was a teenage drug addict and runaway, essentially. My poor parents, even though I was in choir, really the only thing I ever did right was music. Yeah. I got kicked out of high school my freshman year, couldn't even make it through the first year. And I was really heavy into drugs and I got into like raving and selling drugs and the whole thing. And but I always had music. And even when I got kicked out of high school, I still kept up with the choir. And then I was just making demos and everything and ended up getting a record deal and came to LA. And then I continued to struggle for a long time. But, you know, eventually I became a grown-up. But, yeah, I was a bad girl for sure.
That LA thing is interesting because, you know, I mean, if people don't know that about you, I know that you went through a number of years that were difficult economically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I got this huge record deal when I was 16, almost 17 years old. And, you know, when you're that young and somebody hands you a couple $1 million, you're just like, I'm rich forever.
Yeah.
And you don't know about taxes or commissions or whatever. So I was just spending like crazy. No one was looking out for me. And it was gone quick. But I'm so glad because I really learned an important lesson. And I'm so glad it didn't work out the first time for me because if that record deal had worked out, I just don't even know that I'd still be alive, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I had to fall on my face and learn how to pick myself back up and really get my shit together. And if I had been like a teenage star, who knows where I'd be, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Forbes magazine did an article on you, how you managed your economics now, which I thought was an interesting point of reference.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was like, I don't know. I just didn't expect that. You know, it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's again, this goes into the songs. All of this life experience is a part of you, and so it's a part of your songs as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. again, yeah, I am really grateful that I've had so many hardships because I think it helps me to, I don't know, be a human, have a human experience. And when everything's all hunky-dory, it's not, you may not have as much to write about. I'm glad to have those references, but also I don't have to live in turmoil and chaos because I had enough years of that to draw from. I remember what that feels like. I don't need to stay in my dark place. And I feel like a lot of artists feel like they need to create chaos or they need to stay in that place, but you don't. You know, being happy is a full-time job. And I'm like doing my best here, you know?
That's great. That's great. What do you do outside of music other than music? I mean, do you...
I'm writing a book and working on a couple of screenplays and, you know, getting back into the acting thing, taking classes, and I'm really into interior design and I don't know, all things artistic, I guess. But I think language is really very interesting to me. Writing, I love to write, and travel and all those things. I think traveling is important also for writers because you get new sights and sounds and smells and when you stay in the same place and lock yourself in a room, you just run out of things to say.
I've had songwriters say that to me. You can just go to the studio every day, but then what are you going to write about?
Yeah.
Go to the studio every day?
Yeah, and I definitely had many ruts over the years where before I learned that because I really was such a workhorse and I really believed that like if I missed a week in the studio that would have been the week that I wrote the hit. But I missed so many, you know, family functions and birthdays and friend celebrations, just like life experience that I should have been doing. But I was just like so obsessed with working that I just missed a lot. And then I would just be like banging my head against the wall, like, why can't I write anything? Because you're not living. That's why. So it's important to take breaks and get out of your environment.
Amen. I'm interested in the book. Is it fiction or nonfiction?
I'm writing an autobiography.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm about, I don't know, 2/3 the way through, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's a process. It's, who knows, I don't know, it might take me 10 years. Like maybe I don't have my big triumphant happy ending yet, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it'll take me, but it's a nice break from the usual songwriting process because songwriting has to rhyme and songwriting is 3.5 minutes and repetitive, you know, so it's nice to just sort of stream of consciousness write. And sentence structure is fun to put together and not just have to be in my pretty little pop box.
Yeah. Lindsay and I, our producer, we're at the Grammy Museum for a show, and we saw a songwriter interviewed, and the moderator asked, so do you have to stick with rules in pop music when you write songs? And we were like, the songwriter was like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's a science. It's a formula.
Sure.
Which is, like I said, doing this K-pop thing was so interesting where I was like, oh my God, I'm breaking all the rules and it just feels
Nice.
good. It's fun, you know?
Yeah.
I think it might drive me crazy because part of what I love about pop music is the symmetry and the simplicity and the challenge of making something so formulaic and simple, unique and interesting and fresh. That's not easy to do. And everyone always writes off pop music. Oh, pop music is just fluffy, stupid. No, it's the most difficult genre because it's ever changing. But it's also like very strict rules of, you know, what you have to do to get something that appeals to the masses.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's got to be a message, and you know, you have to say something in a different way, that something that's been said before, but in a different way. Right?
Yeah, it has to be familiar but unique.
Yeah. Do you? Wow. How do you choose writing projects? I mean, like songwriting projects? Do they come to you or?
Yes, I have 2 publishers, and they will bring me different projects that they're looking for songs. I'm very selective these days.
I would imagine.
I'm really just focused on my own project and then a couple of things here and there. Just if I like something, if it inspires me, or if it's something that I'm just like, I know exactly what to do and I know this is going to be easy, then I'll do that. But, you know, artist development is difficult, so I'm just picky. I just really have to like it and love it to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's just not worth it. I mean, I won the songwriting game. I don't have anything to prove, you know?
Yeah.
So why work on shit that I don't care about?
True.
You know?
True. Yeah. That's interesting. So interested in the project, and you're going back to the solo project that you're working on right now. You obviously have collaborators on those songs, and are they collaborating specifically on the song specifically for you?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I always like to be clear when I go in the room with people what we're writing for, because there have been times where it's like you go in and you write something, and then it's like, oh, well, this is supposed to be for whatever, this was supposed to be for that, or I'll want to keep it or whatever, So I just like to be like, what's this for, so that I don't feel. Because also I write differently if I'm writing for myself or if I'm writing for somebody else, because there are some things that I just want to save for my project. So yeah, I just like to establish before people come in what we're there for.
I've always wondered about that with writers, because there historically are some writers I know in my consciousness who gave away such great songs to other artists. Maybe they had a song that they wanted to do as an artist, but Beyonce wanted to cut that song. So you have to play that game.
Yeah. There was one song that I gave away that was written for my project that I wanted to keep, and it was given to Cheryl Cole. And I was like, really torn about it. I really wanted to keep the song, but my co-writers had not had like radio hits before, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm not gonna rob them of that. Like, this could be huge, and it went number 1 in the UK. Yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Like, I'm happy to have another number one, like I can't complain about that. But it is hard to be like, this felt like my story, but she did a great job. I mean, her voice is incredible.
She's amazing.
She's a great artist. She's worthy, So, it's got to be a special circumstance to be like, okay, fine,
We'll let you have your number 1. That's cool. That's really cool. Within the collaboration, we see we see in pop music particularly, a number of writers working on a single song. And sometimes for people outside of the business, that's a bit mystifying.
Yeah. I know Howard Stern was recently talking about how many writers there are on Katy Perry songs and how many writers are on this, but it's just like, it takes a village. Yeah. And sometimes there's one writer. Sometimes there's 100%ers. It's rare, especially in pop music. Sometimes there are 2. It's rare. Like, can I write a song with one other person? Sure. But do I like to have like another top line person in the room to ping pong with? Yeah, it helps. Sure. And people have different strengths, Like, I like to absolutely have another lyricist with me. That's helpful for me to go back and forth with. And then maybe there's someone that's a genius melody writer. And then I'll be like, okay, cool. The 3 of us will write the top line. And then there's like, maybe there's a production duo. And then all of a sudden you have 5 people. But who cares? Everybody has their strength. Everybody brings, their best to the table, and you do what's right for the song. Of course, there are other songs that certain labels that I won't name have a process that's kind of a Frankenstein process, where they'll take a song that exists that has 3 or 4 writers on it, and they'll be like, you know what? We're just going to get somebody else to come in and rewrite this hook. And then all of a sudden there's 2 more writers on it. And it's like, you know what? Let's get a rap feature on this. And then like the rapper someone will write the rap, and then the rapper will also want a piece of it, even though they didn't write it or whatever it is. And all of a sudden there's like 12 people on a song, and everybody has a tiny little sliver, and it sucks, like that's like a process that I don't love. So you just have to know what you're getting. Sometimes it's worth it. If the song's a huge hit, then like your, 8% is worth something. But for the most part, I think 5 is kind of like more than 5, it starts to get squirrely.
Yeah, I would imagine. And sometimes there's a sample involved as well, too, in which case the writers of that song are also contributors.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why you see so many names on some of these songs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking the Howard Stern approach, because I understand it. I interview enough songwriters to understand. Yes,
but I was actually just saying that so Howard Stern would hear it. I just wanted to let him know that's why there are so many writers.
Howard Stern,
there's a method to the madness.
Howard Stern, you naughty boy, I hope you're listening. All this energy coming out of you.
Yeah, I like to stay busy. Yeah. And I really get restless when I'm not. I was just actually talking to my cousin last night about, she lived in Hawaii for a while, and I was like, I just can't do island time. I can't do it. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, it's just like, drives me crazy. I just like to go. I like to go. I like to stay busy. I'm a social butterfly. And I like to be alone too. Yeah. That's very important to me. Sometimes I need like days to just be alone, because that's like how I channel the aliens and shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I can't think when I'm around too many people all the time. But even when I'm alone, I'm busy. I'm just like, I'm thinking, you know, I'm writing, I'm journaling, I'm, you know, digging for inspiration. I like to feel like I'm living every moment doing something that's going to get me somewhere or help somebody or whatever.
It's funny you talk about island time because, as I said earlier in the interview, we first met in Hawaii, and you took a zip line. You went. You went on the zip line. You weren't content to just lay by the pool.
Yeah, no, I probably should do more of that. Honestly, I should sit still more. But I don't know. I'm an active brain, I guess.
Yeah. You're right on the cusp, kind of between Capricorn and Aquarius.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Which do you identify with more?
I really have a lot of both because I have the work ethic of a Capricorn and I have the like dreamy kind of like, you know, spaced out weirdo Aquarian thing. So I think I'm equally both.
Is there an artist that you'd like to have record one of your songs that you have not yet reached?
Yes. I always say this in hopes that it will happen one day. I would love to work with Lady Gaga. Oh. I'm such a huge fan. I know she doesn't need me, but I would just love to work with her. I think we would just be the best of friends. And also Bruno Mars. I'm a huge fan.
Mm-hmm. Great. If somebody really wanted to get an autobiographical kind of perspective on you, is there a song from your catalog that would be the most accurate representation of your psyche?
Probably, either American Girl or Roar, really. I feel like a big part of my story is the underdog story. So I'd say those are the two.
Yeah, good. You got the eye of the tiger? There you go.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Stereophonic. At Stereophonic, we are obsessed with great sound. Every episode of our podcast is edited and mixed using the software plugins created by iZotope, the secret weapon of professionals around the world that inspire and enable creativity, save time, increase productivity, and deliver professional sounding results. To find out more, visit iZotope.com. That's spelled IZOTOPE. This episode of Stereophonic was produced and edited by Lindsay Tomasic.